Mr. Jawgar first about the views coming from Malaysia. At this point, after Wednesday press conference by the Malaysian police, DPRK said several things. One, release the two women they believe as innocent. Secondly, South Korea does not have any proof to accuse North Korea. And thirdly, Malaysia is not trustworthy for the investigation. Your response, sir?
That's the North Korean ambassador's view. But as far as the Malaysian police, Malaysian authorities are concerned, this is a country that practices the rule of law. We have to follow the necessary investigation procedures. We are as keen as anybody else to see the problem resolved. We would like to know, we would like to investigate the matter. We would like to get the DNA done, and we would like to apprehend the persons responsible if they are within our means.
Okay, let me continue by asking a bit further to you, because you are very important in finding out the answer for us. What would Malaysia do if no close kin coming from DPRK to either claim the body or provide DNA evidence?
We will cross the bridge. Well, then we will cross the bridge when we come to it. I believe there must be some negotiation and discussion between the Malaysian authorities and the North Korean authorities in order to resolve this matter, if that happens.
Okay, final question before we go to the group discussion with the four of you. Mr. Jawgar, North Korea suggests the two women that Malaysian police were saying as having poison on their hands, put their hands on the face of the apparent Kim Jong Nam and led to his death, actually did not have poison, because they argue, how could the women have the poison on their hands and eventually survive the whole thing? What do you think about this argument?
I think the police will be in a better, Malaysian police will be in a better position to respond to that question.
Okay, so now, four gentlemen, let's come to the real discussion. Not just the investigation, because we will leave it to the police to handle it, but what does it mean for DPRK-Malaysia relations and also the peace and stability of the Korean Peninsula? Mr. Teng, at this point, I have noticed China, United States, Russia, neither of the three parties have clearly stated their stance about this incident. What does it tell us?
There are at least two implications to these countries. First, the death of the man, Kim Jong Nam, is of no significance for these countries. This is the first explanation. And the second, I think these countries have been very cautious toward this incident because the relations with the leaders in DPRK now. So I think these countries are very careful about their statement and also their position towards such assassination.
Interesting. Mr. Paal, coming from the U.S., what does this incident mean for U.S. streamlined strategy toward DPRK and the Korean Peninsula before a final, all-agreed conclusion of the investigation came out?
Well, the U.S., under the new Trump administration, has called for an early review of all options from soup to nuts on how to deal with North Korea. I think this incident just magnifies the sense of sobriety and concern that people ought to have about the development of weapons of mass destruction by the North Korean leadership and what needs to be done to bring that to a halt. Lots of ideas are floating around right now. Very few people are in office in the Trump administration to bear down in detail on what to do next. But the policy review will be ongoing. We're getting into a period of built-up tension. The U.S.-South Korean annual military exercises start in just a couple weeks. The North Koreans typically respond to that with tensions of their own.
Right.
And we could be into a spiraling situation very quickly.
Except the United States. The other three gentlemen sitting with us today all come from countries that have direct diplomatic relations with the DPRK, even though there are very few still in our world today. Therefore, go to you, Mr. Nekrassov. Russia very silent on this incident. Why?
Well, first of all, Russia has been in a similar situation as DPRK with the death of Alexander Litvinenko in London, when everything initially pointed to the Russian involvement in his death, and then later, when the Russian Prosecutor General's office investigated itself, it turned out that it was not as clear-cut as the British and Western media tried to portray it, and now everything has been quietly sort of forgotten about this incident, although information that has surfaced later, and I am prior to this information, I know it. It seems that it was not the case of a state-sponsored murder, as the West presented it, but it was actually a case of different people falling out. So in this particular case we're talking about now, everything is so unclear that to comment on it would be very difficult. It's not just for Russia, but for any other country.
That's
on
right.
the face of it, we don't even know whether the murdered man is actually the man that we are thinking about.
Exactly. There are disputes between Malaysian side and also the South Korean side of exactly who that man is. South Korea has never recognized that man as Kim Jong Nam, but only someone who called Kim Cho with a diplomatic passport. Having said that, though, let me come back to you, Mr. Jawgar. You're coming from Malaysia, one of the direct parties in this case. We've noticed the exchanges of barbs between Malaysia and the DPRK over the apparent assassination of Kim Jong Nam. Interestingly, in history, Malaysians are the only national exempt from applying for a visa when traveling to DPRK. Relations between the countries have been interesting as well. The two countries started in 1973, diplomatic relations, had their embassy open each other's capital 2003. By the year 2013, DPRK leader Kim Jong Un received an honorary doctorate from the Help University, Malaysian university that is. Last year, Kuala Lumpur provided a platform for closed-door talks between former U.S. diplomats and senior Pyongyang officials, even as international efforts to further isolate the DPRK escalate. Mr. Jawgar, Malaysia is really at a very interesting position, I have to say. Shine some light for us on that point.
Can you repeat your last question?
My question is, Malaysia in a very interesting and unique position in dealing with DPRK compared to all of the other countries. What would this mean to your relations? Why Malaysia this time so open when it comes to these investigations, which is contrary to what the DPRK has been saying?
Malaysia has a cordial and friendly relations with North Korea, as it has with all countries, virtually all countries in the world. We regard North Korea as another member of the international community. North Korea was a member of the non-aligned movement before, as was Malaysia. DPRK played a very important role in the non-aligned movement before. And Malaysia, in the past, not once, but not just recently, we hosted the informal unofficial talks, but several occasions in the past. Over several years, Kuala Lumpur has been the venue for quiet diplomacy between North Korea and the other parties that are in conflict with North Korea. Kuala Lumpur is happy to play this role in order to promote peace in the region, and it hopes it can continue to do so.
But Mr.
Now,
Jawgar,
as far as this incident is concerned,
go ahead.
As far as this incident is concerned, we will have to wait and see how it runs out and how it is concluded. I believe for Malaysia, we of course would like to resolve this particular incident according to the laws of our country, and at the same time meet the expectations of the interested parties. And we would like to continue with our good relations with North Korea.
Okay. Mr. Paal, though, Malaysia has called on the DPRK to bring back the 4 gentlemen Malaysia identified as suspect or at least the persons of interest related to this incident. Very likely DPRK not likely to do that. So from the US perspective, are you losing one meeting point possibility between Washington and Pyongyang, with Malaysia and Pyongyang certainly not doing very well at this point?
Well, we may lose the benefit of having a friendly environment in which to meet with North Koreans when we can't meet elsewhere, but it's not impossible for American diplomats to talk to North Koreans. A number of North Korean officials will arrive in New York this weekend to meet with former American officials.
We don't know yet, right? Because their visa have not been issued.
Well, it's expected to be issued. If there is not, if it's not issued, then we'll know it's not issued. But right now, they're expected to turn up in the U.S. and that we'll have an opportunity to talk then. I agree with Tan Sri Johar that Malaysia has provided a good atmosphere. Malaysian intelligence is extremely good, so I'm confident that they will do a terrific job as long as the evidence allows to investigate this case. But you know, when you conduct clandestine murders, which North Korea has done before, you make every effort to make it difficult to assemble the evidence to really point the finger of guilt at one or another authority. So this is all bound up in spycraft, and it's not going to be an easy thing to unravel.
Right. But as Mr. Paal earlier mentioned, Mr. Nekrassov, there are a series of events going on with the missile test earlier, and then the specific assassination, so-called the incident, and then also joint military exercise, South Korea and the United States. Certainly there's going to be a series of, shall I say, friction possibilities in the region. Peace and stability on Korean Peninsula with the new U.S. administration in the office, is it ever possible, Mr. Nekrassov, your Russian perspective?
Well, I think, first of all, I'd like to make one quick point about
Sure.
the Malaysian investigation. We are being just told now that it is done correctly and it is done professionally. Unfortunately, no. It's not done correctly. It's not done professionally. There are statements being made which are inflammatory, which there are contradictory statements. I think this is a disastrous investigation, and I think it has produced all these rumors that are damaging relations between Malaysia and DPRK. So that is one point I want to make. Secondly, I think we live in such an unclear and unstable time when in America, the intelligence services in America and Congress are openly acting against the president. So in Russia, for example, there's a serious confusion as to where this whole situation is going to develop and what actually is the foreign policy of America towards China, towards Russia, towards the DPRK and all the other countries. So there's a lot of uncertainty, and to say at this moment how, you know, the situation will develop with the tensions on the Korean Peninsula going through the roof, basically. And one of the reasons being that America and South Korea have yet to define their policy towards DPRK because they are stoking the tension on the peninsula and then demanding that this tension needs to be dealt with.
Got your point. Just to be fair, I need to let Mr. Jawgar to respond a bit to the at least accusations or different views coming from Mr. Nekrassov, Mr. Jawgar, about the investigation, whether it's fair or not.
Well, that's not the way it is perceived here. As far as the Malaysia is concerned, the investigations are being done professionally and correctly. There are some differences between the North Korean mission here and some of the authorities conducting the investigation here. Unfortunately, the atmosphere is not very good at the moment, but I don't think we should exaggerate this thing too much. I believe this issue will be resolved eventually.
Okay. Mr. Teng, come back to you. Everybody relate to their own experiences and their own perspectives when they express views about one incident. That's only natural. Mr. Teng, therefore, what do you think? where can China go from here? There seems to be one incident after another. China could do nothing about what's really happening right now.
One thing I can tell you, that yesterday our State Councilor Yang Jiechi had a phone call with the Secretary of State Tillerson.
Right.
And both sides committed, promised that they will, enhance the cooperation in the issues in Korean Peninsula and the good relationship between China and the United States, not only for the sake of the two countries, but also for the region. So I think this is a very positive, signal to the outside world. China and the United States will cooperate in dealing with the challenges from DPRK and in Northeast Asia.
But the thing is, how? And will DPRK become a crucial issue in terms of the United States and China finding a common ground to deal with regional and even global security issues?
Yeah, I think Kim Jong Un has been waiting for some decision made by Donald Trump. And from the November last year, Kim Jong Un, restrained his activities, including missile tests and other, provocative actions in this region. And Donald Trump even said during the presidential election that he could invite, Kim Jong Un to have a Hamburger in Washington or somewhere, and that might be easier for the countries to solve the dispute in this region.
Mr. Paal, will that hamburger kinds of a meal or a cordial meal, you will be invited or not?
Well, we'll see if that's going to happen. The tensions are coming at us faster than solutions to the problems. And this unexpected death of Kim Jong Nam in Malaysia only adds to that uncertainty about the near future. A lot to be done, a lot to be thought through. Not very many, in fact, I don't know of any happy choices or good choices.
Okay, let me ask you about the choices,
Americans
because it's very important. At this point, China already done something that is cut off the coal imports coming from DPRK for the rest of the year. And what is the move coming from the United States? China was doing it, according to the Chinese side, in response to the missile test earlier, which is against the UN Security Council resolution. All of the 6 parties, except the DPRK, all condemned.
You're asking what the next U.S. move is?
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure. As I said earlier, there's a review taking place in the administration. That suggests they don't quite know what they want to do yet, and so they're asking for options all the way across the spectrum, from the Hamburger to nuclear pressures on North Korea. And so I think that this is it's just too early to say what the U.S. is going to do.
Okay.
But when you get down to it, we've had a lot of experience, and most paths don't lead to a solution.
Mr. Nekrassov, 6-party talks, of course, is too big a hope, but what kind of role Russia can play?
Well, I think, first of all, Russia can play a part in changing the perception of the whole problem. I think we are stuck, like the issue between the Israelis and Palestinians. We have this determined, dogged decision to bang about a two-state solution, which doesn't work, will never work. The same happens with North Korea. This United Nations position towards North Korea is absolutely wrong. Wrong because tensions are stoked by South Korea, by America, and the situation is such that the DPRK is made desperate. It's put in a desperate situation.
All right.
And instead of finding a solution, new sanctions are being brought in. Why? What is the point of these new sanctions?
Well,
I think the best way out is for the big superpowers to talk without the UN directly to Pyongyang. Directly. China, America, Russia, and DPRK. That's the model I suggest, and the move forward.
Well, haven't they been doing that, Mr. Tong? I mean, 6-party talks is about directly. And China now is encouraging the United States and South Korea to cut directly to DPRK if you can. But the thing is, whether they can.
I think the fundamental change we're facing now is the direct threat we are facing now. the missile system and the nuclear warhead, actually, they all have become the direct threat for all the countries in this region. If the countries concerned continue their manipulation of the situation in DPRK, I'm sure DPRK can go even further in missile development and nuclear development.
Okay.
That's the job for all the parties concerned to cooperate.
The clock is ticking.
Yeah.
In fact, as Mr. Jawgar, you've been constantly checking the clock. I can see that. So what role Malaysia will be able to play? After all, you are being dragged into this specific thing by this incident.
No. I have some comment on the six-party talks.
Okay.
I think while we keep the six-party talks still on the table and try to revive it, I think we can't go very far with the six-party talks because it has not proved fruitful for so many years now. I think we should explore other avenues for bringing about peace on the Korean Peninsula and in Northeast Asia. I think direct talks, yes, but North Korea is in a very disadvantaged position. It is very, very weak in relation to the other powers, particularly the United States and including South Korea, etc. So I think, and so far, all the North Korea, all the strategy so far towards North Korea, I agree, has in fact driven North Korea up the nuclear path even further. It has not improved the situation. So I think we should explore other avenues. Direct talks, yes, but I think it's going to be, I think what we should go for is third-party talks. We should have a mediator, a credible,
If not two-party talks, then we go to tri-party talks. If not tri-party talks, we probably have the hope for six-party talks.
No, not tri-party.
What did you say?
Not tri-party.
We should have a credible mediator who works quietly to bring about peace on the Korean Peninsula, who moves between Pyongyang and Washington, D.C. and Seoul particularly, try to bring about some commonality of views. And the issue here is not really the nuclear weapons. The issue is the security of all the parties concerned, including the legitimate security concerns of North Korea.